Praise the Lord. Well, there's a lot of news going on this week, so I want to give you some of it. Let me give you a little bit about New World Order. Bill Gates, how many remember him? He's still around. Bill Gates backs a plan to live stream the entire Earth with the Big Brother satellites. You can see it up here. It's called Earth Now. And what he's suggesting, not suggesting, but he's actually doing, is he's launching, self-funding, launching these satellites, and they'll be positioned all around the Earth so that they can take pictures and they can identify a lot of different things around the Earth. Obviously, it's policing the Earth. Namely, these satellites could be used to see military bases and other classified sites. It is worth remembering that the satellite network will be in the hands of a private corporation, which is not accountable to the public. They could misuse the network to spy on governments or the business operations of their competitors. One of the people said that when he was doing it, they said that the reason they're doing it is because they don't trust governments, so they want to police the governments. My question is, who is policing Bill Gates? And so anytime you have any of this, it's a sticky wicket if you want. It's something that you just can't get a handle on because it's invading all of our privacies. None of us have the money to launch satellites to look at anybody, but they can look at anything they want to look at. So again, it shrinks our world even more and gets us down the line of prophecy. Let me give you this one for Israel. And Israel is the hot topic tonight. It's very, very hot. I'm going to build it up and tell you how it's come to where we are today. It says, this one says, Israel goes on high alert over Syria as Trump quits the Iran nuclear deal. So let me paraphrase a little bit and give you a little bit of this information. I've read all these reports, so I'll just give it to you my own understanding. The Iran nuclear deal was not just a political faux pas. It was horrible. And the reason it was horrible is because of it created tensions, more tensions, and escalated war in the Middle East. Let me tell you why, and let me tell you the things that you don't hear on TV. When we flew $150 billion to them overnight, in airplanes, $150 billion over there to them overnight. That was part of the Iran nuclear deal. It increased their GDP, their gross domestic product, the amount they use every year, the accumulated amount that they raise every year, 5 times. It took their GDP and it was like them having 5 years of production. And now we're talking oil production and everything. So we immediately did this 5 expansive quest on their money. They had an inflow of money. That's like you having a yearly budget, a yearly salary of $60,000, and we giving you 5 times that. So what they did with that money is they took it and they built up their infrastructure militarily. Their people still starved. They operated and they engaged in a war in Yemen. They started some internal wars, so their people were still starving. So the Iran nuclear deal was bogus. It was horrible from the start. Well, and by the way, let me tell you this. Iran is predominantly Shia and Sunni Muslims, about 96%. The other ones are Alawite and some Christians. The rest of the nations, the 22 Arab nations that are around the area around Iran, are pretty much 96 to 98% Muslim. Not one single Arab nation agreed to the Iran deal. That should tell you something. Iran is an unstable country. They're looking to control the entire Middle East, and the Arab nations know it. So it was bad from the beginning. It was such a bold, historic move that President Trump made. It was absolutely unbelievable. And I'm thankful that he had the fortitude to do it because no other president did. So once he did that, obviously Iran wanted to show its momentum and its steam. And so what they did, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me bring you back up. So he does they're on high alert. So Israel stays on high alert because they knew once he negated the deal, once he pulled out of the deal, that Iran was going to try to do something to Israel. That because Iran's trying to flex its muscles and show America that that they're not going to be pushed around and they're going to do whatever they want to do. And so basically Israel went on high alert, and they went on very high alert. In Iran and Lebanon, Hezbollah have been helping Assad beat back a 7-year-old rebellion. So let me tell you what's happening here. So you have Syria. Syria is a jello nation. What do I mean by that? It's never going to be ruled by anyone. There are too many factions that are there. There are too many groups that are there. Nobody has real control of it. It's one of the reasons why Russia came down, and Russia's trying to control it because Russia has a vested interest in trying to get a warm water port and also to get a seaway that's there to the Mediterranean. So Iran uses Syria, if you can imagine this, as a puzzle piece. They are loading all of their weapons into Syria and creating bases in Syria. Hezbollah is in Lebanon, and this week Hezbollah won 67% of the parliament in Lebanon. Literally, Hezbollah, which is Iranian-backed, which is a jihadist group against Israel, are now controlling Lebanon. So you have the north of Israel, the Golan, that has Lebanon ready to fight against Israel, Syria with all kinds of Iranian bases and rockets and military that are there, and then Iran funneling all those things to Syria and Hezbollah. So the entire north section of Israel, the entire north border is dangerous. It's ready to pounce on Israel. Israel knows that. Matter of fact, I was telling the group last night in my Bible study that I've heard this from Israel for years. It's been something they've said for decades. Trouble always comes from the north. And so they know that their trouble is coming from the north. So Israel is prepared. Israel posted the Iron Dome, a short-range air defense on the Golan because of that. So they placed the Iron Dome there to shoot down any rockets that were coming in. They're ready for it. Israel knows when a threat's coming. So for months now, Iran has been transferring lethal weaponry to its forces in Syria with the purpose of striking at Israel. Benjamin Netanyahu said this a couple days ago. He said, "We will respond mightily to any attack on our territory." That's what he said. That's about 6 days ago. So Iran takes Lebanon. War's coming to Israel's north. This is another article that came several days ago. Initial results from Lebanon's first election in 9 years shows Hezbollah, the Iranian-backed radical Shiite militant group, winning 67% of parliament. If these results hold true, then Lebanon will be effectively controlled by Iran, giving it unfettered access to the north of Israel. So imagine you're Israel. Israel is now watching every kind of armament come in and just mass itself on its northern border. And they know that they have one intent, and that is to destroy Israel. Another news article. I'm just kind of skipping you up to present. Israel ready to bomb Iran if necessary. This was on 5/9. Israeli defense officials have told their American and Russian counterparts that if Iranian-backed forces attack Israel from inside Syria, Jerusalem will not hold back from retaliating with direct strikes against Tehran or other targets in Iran. The officials delivered the message ahead of national security statement expected Monday from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in response to Iranian threats to hit Israel after the recent strikes on Tehran-backed assets in Syria, according to a report by an Israeli newspaper. So that happened. Then let's fast forward to yesterday. Yesterday, a showdown happened. I told people when a war happens in Israel, it's no more than a couple days or a couple hours. It doesn't take long. It's never protracted. 6 days, 7 days. So 20 missiles were fired from these Iranian bases inside of Syria on Thursday, or yesterday. 20 missiles, they were fired. None of them, the Iron Dome's there, all of them were shot down or they did not reach their target. None of them. And Israel immediately launched an offensive. They scrambled their fighter jets. They went inside Iranian territory, airspace, and they fired surface-to-air missiles, and they took out 50 Iranian bases. 50. Now, the reports are all lower than it, but they took out 50. They neutralized Iran totally in Syria, and they showed the world that basically they're not going to stand for everything. Netanyahu said this: if they want to rain on us, we will pour down on them. And so basically what happened was the whole world started to go against Iran. And basically what's happening is now the world's saying that Iran was responsible for it, and that Israel has a right to defend itself. Already 10 Arab nations in the Middle East said Israel has a right to defend itself. 10 Arab nations. So Israel is on an ascendancy. We are watching this thing flip. It used to be the world was totally against Israel. I'm sure there's a lot right now that are. But Israel now, no one is standing in their way. God is opening up a path for them. And I believe it has to do with America backing it. I believe America is doing something that's going to see results not only in Israel, but also in America. Let me give you a couple more Israeli things. Israeli source: Trump will unveil a peace plan after the embassy move. So on May 14th, on the 70th anniversary of their independence, Donald Trump is going to unveil a peace plan. And let me tell you something: the Palestinians are saying we were never going to go to the negotiating table with America being part of it. They have no choice, by the way, and they have to be there. Israel completely surprised, another article, to hear that Trump may actually attend the Jerusalem embassy opening. So this is another statement to the world. So he is really, I'm telling you what, by the way, his approval ratings are skyrocketing. Yeah. They're going over 50%. I told people a long time ago, Trump is going to go down as one of the most historic presidents you've ever had. And let me tell you why. Because he's fulfilling the things he promised. He's doing them. And he's doing it in the midst of turmoil and slander from internally. He's not alone, by the way. There's a slanderous side and a liberal side in Israel that's going against Netanyahu. Yeah. They're doing the exact same thing. And so I went on TV just to look and monitor what's going on. I looked at Fox News, and Fox News talked about Israel. And I turned on to CNN, and turning on to CNN is like watching a bad movie 100 times. It's the exact same thing over and over and over. They are now with the lawyer again, and they're trying to think about the money's there. It's a constant barrage, and you can almost see that their hand they're playing. They just don't like Trump, and they're going to do anything they can. Sooner or later, they're going to realize that the world's going to respect Trump. And so are American people. And by the way, even in the polls and the primaries, we're watching the Republicans start to gain on knowing and aligning themselves with Trump. So I'm not crazy about Trump's personality. I'm going to be the first one to tell you that. But I am telling you that he is doing something for our country, and especially with Israel. You know what this article says this. Israeli official says Israel should welcome a Trump peace plan no matter what it says. This is the first time they ever said it. He said he wants to put some concessions to the Palestinians, but they said this is the first time we've had an American president totally on our side, so whatever he suggests, we're going to follow. That's an amazing, that the alignment with Israel alone is going to bless America. That alignment has never been seen before. Let me give you another one. Abbas is only part of a much larger problem. This one comes in also. So IDF was on high alert. We don't have to worry about that anymore because they took care of it. Abbas is this. Palestinian Authority leader Mahmoud Abbas' outraged remarks about Jews may have rocked the world, but they also exposed the international community's disinterest in the positions held by Abbas and the Palestinians in general. In 1997, Abbas published his book Zionism, Beginning and End. The book, which has never been translated into Hebrew, explains at length all the claims he has repeated publicly in recent years. The book states that Zionism was forced on the Jews by European colonialists. Not true. It was started by Herzl, who did it in 1899, wanting to have Israel be a homeland, who against their will made them see themselves as a nation and immigrate to Palestine. That's not true either. As a matter of fact, the Europeans wanted to give them Argentina for their homeland. They wanted to give them some other little nations as their homeland. They never wanted to give them Israel as their homeland. In light of recent calls for Abbas to step down, one must emphasize that his remarks are not just a reflection of his personal opinion, but also the Palestinian belief system. They constitute the basis of the false Palestinian narrative that holds that there is no such thing as a Jewish people. Here's what he says. He says the Jews have no historical connection to Palestine. Therefore, there is no basis for their demand to return to Palestine. He says that as descendants of the Canaanites, he's saying that the Palestinians are descendants of the Canaanites. He wrote a thesis for his doctorate at this, and I'm not sure which college gave it to him. It was one in Palestine, I'm sure, but he should never have got a doctorate. He should have had an F on it, because basically the Canaanites are no longer existing. There are no Canaanites. They were wiped out by Joshua. So he's saying the Palestinians are the actual owners because they predate the Jews who came into Canaan because they're Canaanites. Well, they're not Canaanites. They are the Palestinians are actually Arabs that are from in the time of Canaan in the Canaanites. The Canaanites were northern people that came down and conquered the land. The Arabs were already in the Arabian Peninsula in the south. They were never that far north. So his premise is totally wrong, and basically they are continuing to push that premise, and that's one of the reasons why there's such a problem. You cannot lie about history. When they say there was never a Solomon's Temple, and I'm going to show you tonight that they're still pulling things out of the ground from Solomon's Temple, you can't lie about archaeology. He tries, but he can't. So let me give you a couple other things that are happening. These are some new ones I added since last night. This is kind of interesting because it'll involve you. Fellowship House near the U.S. Embassy to build upon Jewish-Christian bond. The International Fellowship of Christian and Jews, or the Fellowship, is breaking ground. You need to tell your mom about this because I'll tell you why. Do you know why? I'll tell you why. On his brand new Jerusalem headquarters, a multi-million-dollar building that will provide a home in the Holy Land for visiting Christians. In the context of what has become known as the Golden Age for Jewish-Christian relations, the center will be located near the planned U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem, a move that many evangelical Christians and the United States strongly supported. The building project at Hanuk Albrecht Street, called the Global Fellowship House, will likely take about 3 years to complete and is sandwiched between the Western Wall and Bethlehem. The headquarters will primarily be used as an educational facility where Christians can learn about the Jewish roots of their faith. According to Rabbi Eckstein, the Fellowship's global, you know that I'm talking about now, global executive president, the building is intended to be inspired to both the Christian visitors and beneficial for the people of Israel. About 25 years ago, her mom, who was a member of my church, said, hey, there's a guy I'd like you to meet, and I want to pay your way to go to Chicago to meet him. And I said, who is he? She says, it's Rabbi Eckstein. He has a fellowship He's a Jewish rabbi, and he knows that Christians support Israel, and we know that you support Israel, so I talked to him about you, and I want you to go to meet him. So I met Rabbi Eckstein, amazing guy. This guy loves Christians. He's a Jew. He loves Christians, but he says that there's such a unique bond between Christians and Jews that he wants to continue to push that bond. And so I started supporting him, and I've known him quite a while. Well, he's building a building now since Trump moved the embassy to Jerusalem. Listen, it's for visitors. The project aims to provide the information needed for an inspirational experience seeing where Christian forefathers walked and exploring holy sites, said Eckstein. So I got real excited when I read it because I know him and I had supported him. And then I got very excited as I continued to read on because there was another key that I didn't even know about. He says young Christians will be given the opportunity to volunteer at Pantry Packers, a program run by Kabod House. How many of you ever gave any money to Israel through Mark Rowe Ministries? I have been supporting Kabod House, the only Christian group that's ever supported him. It's a Hasidic Jew. It's a friend of mine. I've been supporting for 25 years. And now Rabbi Eckstein is using them. They feed all of the homeless and all the people that don't have any money really in Tiberias. And so to me, I'm looking at this article and saying, well, wait, I know that one. And I know this one because I supported both of them. So it's really exciting to me when I see God confirming the fact of who we should support. And this is an amazing thing that's happening. So let me give you another one. This one came out today also. This is pretty amazing. This says, Jerusalem is rising as Israel's enemies falter. This is before the strike, by the way. In the past 70 years, no single country's stock has risen faster or farther than the state of Israel. Once a resource-poor, existentially endangered nation, state compromised of refugees from post-Holocaust Europe and Muslim countries throughout the Middle East and North Africa, Israel has emerged into a world economic, military, and diplomatic superpower. Listen, we don't realize it, but Israel was nothing. It was a swamp. And basically, it had refugees in it. This was a refugee camp. It was something, and in 70 years, it's become a national contender, international contender in almost any area you could possibly imagine. That's definitely the hand of God. While announcing America's exit from the flawed Iranian nuclear deal, officially the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, Trump's direct reference to Netanyahu's publication of incontrovertible evidence exposing the full nature of Iran's sophisticated nuclear weapons program, places Israel at the center of policymaking in the free world. In the hours after Trump's announced America's withdrawal, a large explosion occurred in an Iranian weapons depot outside of Damascus. Israel immediately took the efforts to say, we know they have the things, America's taking themselves out because we know they have nuclear weapons, and they're developing nuclear weapons, I should say, and they immediately took out the plant. That's why they rained those 20 rockets on them. While the Jewish state stock is rising, Israel enemies are imploding. Though Iran has expanded its reach across the Middle East, wreaking havoc on Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon, and Yemen, severe cracks have been exposed in the dictatorial regime of the Islamic Republic. During the past year, public protests against the regime's corruption have broke out across the country. It's one of the reasons why Trump appealed to the Iranian people, said, take your government back, and they need to. And in the past several weeks, the value of Iran's currency, the rial, has plummeted, throwing Iran into severe economic uncertainty even before the impending onset of the highest level of economic sanctions about to be imposed by the United States. So Iran is producing right now 2.1 billion barrels of oil a day. They were usually producing 1 billion. Because we had the Iranian nuclear deal, we allowed them to continue to produce their oil. They flooded the market, and now we're going to restrict that again. And so basically, you have all the pundits saying on the liberal left, well, that's going to send up our gas prices. It will not. Saudi Arabia has already said they will make up whatever Iran can't do. And so we're watching something happen that is unprecedented. We're watching a globalization go against those nations that are trying to go against Israel. In the West Bank, the PA, Palestinian Authority, has been exposed to a corrupt kleptocracy. It's actually kleptomaniac, and they're trying to put it in a democracy. Kleptocracy, there you go, led by an aging autocrat, Mohammad Abbas, who is now in his 13th year of a 4-year term, bent on inciting incentive murders of the Jews. And so they're talking about the PA, the Palestinian Authority, is going downhill also. So we're watching some of these nations that have gone against Israel start to implode. Now, don't go into a false sense of security here. We know prophecy-wise that nations will again rise up against Israel. But what we're seeing is Israel be strengthened over and over and over again by by the hand of God. So it's an amazing thing. And definitely that strike sends a clear message to the entire world. We're going to do what we want to do, and you're not going to threaten us. How many of you would be upset? I mean, we got upset. You weren't living, maybe, but some of us were, when the Cuban Missile Crisis, when Khrushchev was bringing intercontinental ballistic missiles 90 miles off of our base. We had an embargo around Cuba that lasted over 60 years. What if they would have done that in Canada and Mexico? What if they would have lined up all their missiles around our borders? You think we would have stood for that? Israel has every right to defend itself. And by the way, they did it to the nth degree. There's no question. Along with that, let me give you this one from Israel. Something was found this week. Jerusalem findings support the Bible. Archaeologists excavating near the Temple Mount in Jerusalem recently unearthed small, impressed clay pieces, they're called bulla, by the way, bearing the seal of King Hezekiah, who, by the way, everybody knows that there was a historical King Hezekiah. If you go into Hezekiah's tunnel, you'll actually see his name inscribed in it from way back when he lived. So the Bible talks about Hezekiah. The one who talked about Hezekiah the most was Isaiah. Here's the catch. Most secular scholars do not believe Isaiah existed. They think it's somebody that wrote something under a false name, and they just thought that he doesn't exist. Well, this bulla contained the name of Hezekiah and his prophet Isaiah. So when God's opening things up and showing things, he does it right at the right time. Let me give you a little bit more about what's going on in the world and the economy. So we have Bernie Sanders, who is trying to give us socialism to America, and we had young people who have really no minds at all. To back socialism, you just don't know history. You need to get a little age on. You need to get a couple gray hairs to back socialism. Socialism does not work. Let me tell you how bad it does not work. This is interesting because you may not be a gamer. How many know what gamers are? How many do not know what gamers are? These are people that all they do all day long is play games on their computers. And there's some sophisticated games. Some of them give cash awards. So listen to this. Online game currency is now worth 7 times more than the Venezuelan bolivar. The bolivar is the dollar for Venezuela. The currency in the online role-playing game, World of Warcraft, it's called WoW, is now worth more than Venezuela's bolivar. File this one under things that happen when socialism takes over. Although it's probably not very funny for those who use money as toilet paper in the socialist dystopia of Venezuela, it is nonetheless a teachable moment for delusional leftists in the United States who are chomping at the bit for a master like Bernie Sanders. Because of anti-capitalist ideals, the fake gold of Azeroth in the World of Warcraft is now worth 7 times what the bolivar is worth. Here's the math behind the currency value. Per Google, $1 US is worth 68,915 bolivar. So if you're in Venezuela, you need almost $70,000 to equal $1 US. Talk about an exchange rate. Compare that to the price of WoW tokens, official in-game credits that can be used to extend a player's playtime or buy in-game items. Tokens that can be bought with either $20 real cash or sold for a fluctuating amount of in-game gold. One tracking service lists the current gold price of a token, this is a game token, at 203,035 pieces. That works out to about 10,152 gold gaming pieces per US dollar. By those calculations, the World of Warcraft virtual gold, which is in the game, would be worth 6.8 times as much as the bolivar. So their money is worthless. What they've done right now, of course, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, who is a socialist all down the line, has shifted his support away from the bolivar. So now he said, well, you know what? We're not going to honor that bolivar anymore. We're going to go to this cryptocurrency called the petro. So now they're dealing with the cryptocurrency called the petro. Venezuela is in trouble. They're in big trouble because they're socialists. And let me tell you something, socialism does not work. Turn to your neighbor and say, socialism does not work. And if I even think, and tell them this, if I even think you're going to look Bernie Sanders' way, I'm not going to look at you anymore. Bernie Sanders is a socialist. America does not need him. Let me tell you a little bit more about economy. All 4 major U.S. credit cards ditch signatures with eyes on biometrics. So if you have a Discover card, if you have Visa, if you have an American Express, which one am I missing? If you have a MasterCard, you're supposed to sign the back of them, and retailers are supposed to look at your signature. How many of you know they don't do that? Well, now what they're going to do is they're going to do away with that, so they don't have to do that at all, and they're eventually going to require us, who have any cards, to have an iris scan or a fingerprint or some other identification, facial recognition on your MasterCard. So people ask me all the time, what's the mark of the beast? Is this the mark of the beast? That's not the mark of the beast. That's another step towards the mark of the beast. Anytime they're identifying you and taking any of your vitals and they're putting on any type of card and you're buying and selling, some wheels should go ahead in your brain to say prophecy is telling us that sooner or later you're not going to be able to buy or sell unless you have a mark. And so basically this is where this is headed. And we're watching it go further and further. And it's along with a cashless society. Let me give you a little bit about religion. And boy, if you don't get upset with anything, by the way, that's the Venezuela one. That's the wow image that came up. Let me give you a little about religion. Read this one for yourself. Christians not allowed to adopt children. Canada. These things are happening in Canada. In Canada, they took children away from a Christian couple that had adopted this child. They took them away because the Christian couple told them there was no Easter bunny. How many of you know there is no Easter bunny? You looked at me like, wow, what's that? There is no Easter bunny. I know that's news to a lot of people, but there is none. So obviously this couple didn't want to lie to this child and their Christian convictions, and that's okay. And they told them that. Well, the couple took the agency to court, and basically what happened was they won. It was a good victory for the Christian couple that says, it's a religious understanding. If they're bringing them up in their home, they have to have their religious. They have an amendment right also. They have to have their religious right, and it's okay. Well, that's all right, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. It seems that the adoption agencies in Canada are taking kids away from Christian couples because of their preference for opposite of same-sex marriage, their preference for a man and a woman marrying. They're taking them away, and so there's a lot of court cases. Here's what the article actually underscores. Gay couples, on the other hand, are often given precedent over families that could provide children both a mother and a father. So gay couples, as soon as they inquire for an adoption, they almost instantly get it. Something's definitely wrong. Something's upside down. So let's go on with that. This is a new poll that came out this week. Shows belief about God versus God of the Bible. The rise of the nuns, the new atheist movement, and the expulsion of God from the public sphere have been heralded in one religious survey after another for almost 20 years. But a new study conducted by the Pew Research Center raises questions about what it means to believe in God and calls into question the modern use of labels such as Christian, atheist, spiritual, and believer. Those labels are getting mixed up right now. Let me tell you why. The survey had 4,700 American adults. They were asked the opening question, do you believe in God? Those who professed their belief, 80%, were then asked if God of the Bible or whether some other higher power spiritual force. Well, the 80% who said they believed in God, 56% said it's the God of the Bible. 23% said it's some other force. And so when you ask somebody if they believe in God, it may not be the same God you believe in. Interesting, the group that claimed not to believe in God, 19%, were also presented with the option to claim their belief in a higher power spiritual force, and a surprising 9% of the total survey population did just that. They said we have a higher source. It's not God, but it's some other higher source. Seemingly contradictory results expose the major fault lines in the American religious life today as generations of believers drift away from the church. The term atheist, as well as has become confused with those who reject organized religion, but continue to hold the belief in God, as opposed to those who positively claim that God exists. When asked whether God or a similar being influences or controls the events of their life completely or to a great extent, the full 48% of the survey participants responded they agreed, and another 18% believe that it's true some of the time, leaving a total of 66% of the 4,700 surveyed adults professing a belief in God, a belief that God intercedes in the world to affect our lives. In perhaps another example of shifting terminology, 39% of those who claim not to pray regularly talk to God. And claim to receive responses, which begs us to ask the question of what is their prayer really about? In total, around 75% of Americans surveyed talk to God, 75%. And around 30% say he responds to them. So here's my take on this. America doesn't really understand who God is. They're talking to somebody because they know they need to. There is a homing signal in every single one of us. There's a hole in every one of us. Every single human is born to worship something. I want you to know that. And so even atheists, this goes on to say, even atheists are saying that they talk to God. How could you be an atheist and talk to God? I mean, that's one of those oxymorons. And so basically what we're seeing is a spirituality in America that has no biblical basis. There's no Bible funding in it, no Bible foundation on it. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were telling me about their church. Now, their church is appealing to the youth. They want to bring the youth in, but they were a little concerned, and I had to warn them not to talk about their pastor, but they were a little concerned because their pastor just gives these 3 points, and they're very surfacey, and they get nothing, and I get that all the time. And they said, but we understand. He's trying to bring the youth in. I said, well, don't talk about your pastor, but let me tell you about church. First of all, the youth in America only make up 14% of America. So we are appealing to 14% of America. And the baby boomers, which most of you might be, are pretty much about 65% of America. Now let me tell you a little bit about youth. When I got saved, I'm going to take a little time here. Can I do that? When I got saved, I listened to acid rock music. The Doors, Black Sabbath, come on, AC/DC. When I got saved, all they had were a 4-part harmony, which was like, where did that come from? But what I did was I bought into all the theology of the church. I wanted to do as best I could for God, so I sang the 4-part harmony. Here's a long hair ex-hippie singing the 4-part harmony, and I was okay with it. It wasn't my style, but I was okay because I was worshiping God. So what happened eventually is I learned the truths and I learned theology from church. As I grew, even though those things may have been strange to me, the theology stuck. And so as I got older, I was able to teach my children theology, and of course, being a pastor, I was able to do the same thing. What we're doing with kids today and young people is we're bringing them into church and we're giving them what they like Burger King. Then they're maturing, and usually if you mature, you're going to hang on to those things that were taught to you way back when you were young, whether you understood them or not. You're going to hang on to the Bible doesn't go out the void. But there's nothing for them to hang on to when they get to be parents. Nothing. So what the church is doing is it's setting itself up in a never-ending circle. It's going to always have to appeal to that young generation, and it's going to eventually start ignoring everyone that ages. Amen. And nobody sees it. You know, I've been able to go to churches, thank God, around the nation and tell some of them this, but everybody thinks that this is the thing to do. You're chasing the tail, and it's the wrong thing to chase. Yes, you appeal to your young people, but you don't have to compromise anything. Yes, styles change. It's okay for styles to change, but you don't throw theology out the window. You can't do it. Anyway, that's my soapbox for that. Let me give you this one. Religion. When Christianity becomes illegal, those who call themselves Christians in an attempt to follow biblical morality as they understand it are now among the most persecuted religious groups in the world. Christians are one of the most persecuted groups in the world. That's from Newsweek magazine in January 2018. Sadly, it's even increasingly true even in nations where Christianity is considered the prominent religion. According to Weekly Standard, Harvard University student newspaper, the Harvard Crimson recently reported that the school's Office of Student Life placed the group Harvard College Faith and Action on administration probation. So here's a Christian-based group in Harvard. They placed them on probation because in that group they said there was a woman that was an officer, and the woman came out and said that she was a lesbian, she was dating a woman, and they said, that's not in our bylaws, you can't do that, it's against what we believe. So they said that, so that Harvard immediately ostracized them and were kicking them off of campus. Now, let me tell you a couple things about Harvard and all the Ivy League schools. You had to be, when they were started, around 1600s, you had to be saved to be a professor. You had to be saved to be a student. They were schools to produce preachers. And somewhere down the line, the money started coming in and it started getting secular. So every single one of them are at that spot right now. Pastor, that's just a generality. No, it's not. In every one of their commencement services and ceremonies this month coming up, almost all of the colleges in the north that are of the Ivy League, actually all of them, I won't say almost, all of them, do not have one conservative speaker doing commencements. They're all liberals, not one single conservative. So as our colleges go, that's how our nation goes. Somebody say amen. You know, college sometimes does more to harm a child than it does to help them. A private Florida condominium in the same article complex recently passed rules prohibiting group Bible studies and Christian music in its common areas. So here's a condominium complex. One lady protested. She protested the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and they shut down all Bible reading and everything that were going on in these nursing homes, this condominium. You know, when I was a young preacher, the only place they'd let you preach was in nursing homes. I remember the first time I preached, I was so excited. I went to this nursing home. I didn't mean to tell you this, but I'm going to tell you. I went to this nursing home, and I had my message prepared. I had studied. I went out in the yard, and I preached it to myself. I went there, and I was ready to preach my message, and all these people were sitting in their wheelchairs, sweet people, sitting in their wheelchairs, and I'm preaching my message, and I looked up, and everybody's laughing. Well, Harold over there decided to stand up and take his clothes off. So I said, Lord, what am I doing here? Then finally I realized, you know what? there are so many Christians that go to those homes. There's so many people that pour their hearts out. And to stop this, do we realize what we're doing? We're giving these people, some of those people just look so much forward to that. Not like Harold, but some of these look so much forward to that. That's their life. And you're stopping doing that. Again, it's another sign of the time. I'm not going to tell you, this is Southern Poverty Law Center. They started out as a very good organization against hate crimes, and I think they did great work. Now they're targeting religious groups, and it's really not right. Nevada's spiritual leader to give first Hindu prayer at Oklahoma Senate. Makes you almost want to run away from the news, doesn't it? This one says, where will gender confusion end? Let me give you this last one. In Australia, shortly after same-sex marriage bill was introduced into Parliament, a member of the House of Representatives proposed marriage to his same-sex partner of 9 years on the floor of the Parliament. The event was followed by approving applause from all who were present. In an unprecedented move in Britain, a prominent homosexual Anglican cleric encouraged believers to pray for Prince George, he's age 4 by the way, and third in line to the throne, to find the love of a fine young gentleman when he grows up so as to advance the cause of same-sex marriage in the church. So understand, I've told you this, I think I'm not judgmental of anyone. I want you to understand that. Sin is sin. It doesn't matter what it is. People can do whatever they want to do. It's their right. How many of you understand that? But it's not their right to push things on us that especially are not biblical. Come on. All right, that's the heavy duty in the news, so I thought I would give you something that was not so heavy duty, and I forgot to do it. I saw this, so I'll tell you about it. I don't have the picture there. I saw this picture of a gym that just opened up, and it was a fitness center. And the fitness center, I'm sure it's not going to do it justice telling you it, but the fitness center was there, and it had steps coming down, and it had 2 escalators going up, and all the people going to the gym were on the escalators. So on the bottom of it, I just said, what's the point? What is the point? I go to the gym sometimes and I watch people go to the gym and they want to get the closest parking places. Park across the street. You're going to have to do some work anyway. So that's in the news for tonight. I'm going to ask the ushers that they come forward. Let me tell you a couple things. Some of you